off the board. They went Reid, Duke, Tom Ross. You know, you throw Brad, you throw BBD, you throw Gerard. Those are probably the top 5 players off the board for the tournament as far as fantasy drafts are concerned. Gerard's into the finals. One of these 2 players will be here in just a moment as the Duke will start things off with an Opulent Palace. Nelson will draw a card in the Sultai Reanimator mirror. He has a Temple of Melody, so a little scry action to start here for Brad.
Well, you just said that. I mean, it's hard to pick, though, against someone who's a former player of the year. Brad Nelson already dispatched Tom Ross. He was the player who sent him home just a few hours ago. Maybe he can do the same to Reid Duke.
Sylvan Carey added, so Duke with a little bit of acceleration. Nelson, on his second turn after drawing, will play a Temple of Mystery, so a little more scry action. Top card going to become the bottom card, and we're going to go back Duke's way. Now, one thing Duke can't do is accelerate, of course, into Sidisi. We know that, but he can accelerate into perhaps Ilana Blossoms, but he'll start with a Courser of Crewfix. Top card being a copy of Sylvan Wayfinder.
Well, both players know each other's deck list and know that they're going to have to dig in for the late game. As a result, what I think you're going to see Reid Duke do here is instead of trying to accelerate into something like Eidolon of Blossoms, which might die right away, he's going to go with very conservative with something like Course of Crewfix. He wants to net as many free cards as possible here.
Temple to see will put the Wayfinder to the bottom. Top card is an Urborg, so that'll be Duke's draw. Nelson will take a draw here. A little bit behind at this point is Brad, as Reid is starting to gain some small card advantage as he goes.
Yeah, Courser of Crewfix unchecked can be pretty important in this matchup. It hasn't gotten Reid any free cards yet, but it will do work if Brad leaves one in play. At the same time, what Brad has going for him, as we mentioned before, is this Sidisi Brood Tyrant engine. He has that. He can mill into cards like Soul of Innistrad as well, with things like Satyr Wayfinder. He does have the ability to generate a lot of card advantage out of the graveyard.
Farika here for Nelson. We're going to head back Duke's way. So the God of Affliction has shown up. Both these players have that card in main deck this week, and there's a Doomwake Giant off the top there for Duke. He has 3 main deck copies of that, so he is prepared to beat Hornet Queens this weekend.
Farika, God of Affliction, a great card in this matchup, as it's very difficult to get off the board for the players, and its exiling ability is really good. Both players play a full set of Satyr Wayfinders. However, this early in the game, it's a little wanting because it's not going to do anything for quite a while. No one has anything in the graveyards, and Brad can't get enough devotion for it.
Of course, if Crewfix going to come into the red zone here against Nelson, so Nelson going to come down to 18. Duke did play a land there in Windswept Tea, so he has the ability to fetch away, if he'd like to, that Doomwake Giant, or he could have that as his draw step. His choice depends on what Nelson does do for the turn. Nelson does have a copy of Sultai Charm in his hand. Both players have access to that card in their deck. 1 main deck copy for Reid Duke, and 2 main deck copies for Brad Nelson.
Doomwake Giant's really kind of an interesting one in this matchup. It can be very weak in that it's a 4/6 for 5, but it does have some applications. It's great at taking down the Hornet Queen tokens, and in this situation, it's a good answer to the tokens that Farika creates. And because there is a Farika on Brad's side, I'm not surprised to see Reid draw the card.
Doomwake Giant will go to the grip. Sylvan Carey added as the top card of the deck there for the Duke. We'll see what he wants to do here on what is his 5th turn of the game.
This really emphasizes the pacing that this game is going to take. If you look at Brad's side, his turn 3 play was a god, which is not a creature for a while, and Brad has yet to use his activated ability. So in a lot of ways, Brad has just made lands for the first 4 turns of the game. Really has no board presence right now.
Well, it's been very unimpressive, the start here for Nelson. No Carey added, no Courser, no nothing really, no Satyr Wayfinder. He's just kind of playing lands, as you mentioned. Does have Farika, which is an important card in the matchup, but not at this juncture. So as Brad is being attacked here by the Courser, might be considering the Sultai Charm, but is not going to use it. So a little more damage is going to come across. He's going to fall down to 16, it looks like. And we'll see how Duke wants to follow things up. And it looks like Duke doesn't want to do anything just yet. We might still be in the attack phase, though. So Sultai Charm is going to go after Courser. It doesn't look like damage is going to be dealt, but Duke is going to sacrifice his Windswept Teeth. Sylvan Carey is going to get shuffled in. He'll get a land out of his deck, trigger the Courser, gain the life back that he just lost, and we'll see what the top card of the deck is here momentarily.
Because Reid waited until combat to do that, what that means is that if this top card is a land, Reid's not going to get it for free. This Courser will have been in play and died without ever netting Reid an extra card. So at the end of the day, it was actually a 1-for-1 trade, Sultai Charm for Courser, which really I think is what Brad's looking for.
Yeah, Reid actually drew the Urborg, never put it, that was his draw for the turn, so never actually got an extra land off of the Courser, but it did pick up and buy out a copy of Sultai Charm. So perhaps it did its job, as the top card here is a Forest.
Right, and that's really the tragedy, is that he's not going to get to play that one for free. He'll have to draw it.
So Sultai Charm does take care of the Courser. 2 mana being tapped here by Duke. It'll be a copy of Commune with the Gods, so we'll take a look at the top couple. It'll be a Forest, a Hornet Queen, a Whip of Erebos, an Opulent Palace, and another copy of Hornet Queen.
Well, putting whip into your hand and Hornet Queens into the graveyard is a great place to start. Brad does have some graveyard hate. He has Farika, so there's some tension here.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right, where, he does have Farika out there, but he'll be giving Duke those enchantment tokens. So, there's some ups and downs. No Hornet Queens coming back, but, those snakes can be a little bit difficult to beat. Looks like Duke is going to select Hornet Queen. He'll put the rest in the graveyard.
And what Reid actually did here that was really nice is he did crack that fetch land for the Courser in combat so that he could see the top card and decide whether or not he wanted to draw it or commune with it. Once he saw a basic forest, then he was able to play Commune with the Gods.
Courser gives away so much information to both players. Nelson will see exactly what you're going to draw as here's Sidisi, but Duke will be able to manipulate his draw. Sidisi's going to come in, trigger, turn over a couple of cards, zombie token on the way.
And now this is what Brad's deck can do that Reid's can't, is it can mount an assault a lot more quickly. 5 power from Sidisi, and Reid will have enough mana for Hornet Queen, but Brad, with what I believe is Doomwake Giant at the ready, could get a pretty good attack going here.
Oh, Duke's going to draw his card. One thing that we know he does have is a copy of Verborg in hand. He also did pick up, of course, Hornet Queen from the Commune, so he's going to fire off with a Thoughtseize now. Wants to see exactly what Nelson is up to, and we're going to find out as well. You'll see a Doomwake Giant. That's probably the most important of the bunch. 2 copies of Hornet Queen. Not bad either. And then Atlanta War Waste. So some nice options here in Nelson's hand for Duke's Thoughtseize.
Interesting here, and I like how Duke has played this. He has his own Hornet Queen that he's taken. Looks like he can get Brad's Doomwake before Reid makes his own Hornet Queen. And then he has his own Doomwake for Brad's Hornet Queens. If played right, Reid will get to have the best of both of these exchanges.
There goes Doomwake Giant. Queen's still in the grip. Land for Duke is a copy of Land War Waste, and now here's Doomwake Giant. Trigger Constellation, -1/-1. Won't take care of anything right now, however. So, we head back Nelson's way. Nelson will draw a card. Looks like a copy of Verborg.
Still 2 lands off of Hornet Queen. Though, even if he does have Hornet Queens, we see Doomwake Giant could take care of them if Reid has another enchantment.
Land number 6 is a copy of Land War Waste. No real good attacks on this particular board. Is still away from Devotion there on Farika. So it's just a passing of the turn back to Duke. Duke will draw a card. Has Doomwake Giant. Sylvan Caryatid. 6 lands in play.
Brad won't have much of a play until he hits that Hornet Queen. What it will do is give him a whole board of 1/1s, and on top of that, it will provide enough Devotion to activate the Farika. So it'll be very good when it comes. But he'll need that land soon, as Reid now has a Hornet Queen and was able to Thoughtseize away Brad's Doomwake Giant first.
And 4 insect tokens come along with the Queen. Now, Reid quickly played his land and then played the Hornet Queen, so your attention is probably on the new green creature. But the land that he played is an important one, a copy of Nykthos. He generated a lot of mana from that card.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and right now he has 4 Devotion to green, 1 from the Caryatid, and 3 from the Hornet Queen.
Nelson going to activate his Farika here. So he'll have a green and black enchantment snake token coming. Does have Death Touch as well. So there that is.
Now, unlike Reid's deck, Brad is not playing any copies of Eidolon of Blossoms. So you have to remember that his Farikas, while good, don't combo off the same way that a Farika will in Reid Duke's deck.
Yeah, nowhere near as good as Reid Duke's Farikas. And nowhere near as good, obviously, with the engine that he has having. And Duke's deck, it does have Whip of Erebos, but it's mainly a Constellation deck. He has Doomwake Giants, he has Eidolon of Blossoms, so he can really go crazy there with that. But he does have, this small whip engine as well. So he's kind of taken, a Sultai Reanimator deck and a green-black Constellation deck, a deck he's familiar with from playing, for a little while here. I believe he played something like this at Worlds. He's kind of smushed them together. Death Toucher looks like it's headed into the red zone. Force a little bit of damage through.
Yeah, Brad with some attackers here, and he's going to have to get to work with these snakes while he can. Doomwake Giants looming pretty large on Reid's side of the board.
Yeah, the big plan for Nelson, I think, was built around Doomwake Giant, but that got taken via Thoughtseize. And now Reid does have his Doomwake Giant in play. Now, here's a Hornet Queen for Nelson, so he's going to get 4 flying insect tokens as well, but he doesn't have Doomwake Giant like Duke does. So wouldn't surprise you to see Reid quickly untap and just play an enchantment to trigger the Constellation on Doomwake Giant.
And this was the great forethought from Reid. The one turn where he could have ramped into that Hornet Queen. Instead, he spends his entire turn to stop and thought seize, just to make sure everything sequences correctly, and boy, is it paying off.
No enchantment right now, however, for Duke. Just going to play a copy of Opulent Palace and pass the turn back. So perhaps a little bit of mana flood as we do head back Nelson's way. The door is open for Nelson to compete in this game. He'll draw a card. It's a copy of Courser of Crewfix to go along with the Murderous Cut and another copy of Hornet Queen. See how Nelson wants to sequence things here.
I mean, Reid Duke without the first enchantment. Maybe Brad just tries to press the advantage while he has it. We'll see here. He's going to get more cards. Courser of Crewfix will help.
There's an island going to trigger the Courser. We'll see the top card of his deck now. It's a copy of Polluted Delta. Little devotion check there for Farika. Farika, of course, brings 2 along with itself. 2 from Sidisi. That's 4. 2 from Courser, 6. 3 more for Hornet Queen. That means Farika can attack, though. A 5/5 into a 4/6. A little bit more difficult than you'd like. Though, again, this may help in Murderous Cut.
What you have to remember here is that Brad's deck has most of its late game in play. If you think about the things that he could do to make his deck even stronger, it's really only 2 things. He could draw a Whip of Erebos and his 1-of copy of Soul of Innistrad. Outside of that, because he's not a Nykthos deck like Reid, and he's not an Eidolon deck, things don't get much better than what Brad has going right now.
He's going to have to try to hold on and move forward with this as he's reaching for those insect tokens. That enchantment Death Touch creature from Farika and Farika itself. Perhaps we'll even see the zombie attack that he made with Sidisi. And even Sidisi too. This could get interesting.
Yeah, may want just everything in here. Sidisi, so many Death Touch creatures are on the board that Sidisi's not going to get much better. And he may just be using this Sidisi as an opportunity to mill a land off the top of his deck. That's enough value to sacrifice the creature for.
Yeah, Polluted Delta is going to go away, but also a Forest and Opulent Palace will too. So now the top card we'll see from Courser is a copy of Satyr Wayfinder. Duke is going to figure out exactly how he does want to block in this situation, as he has insects with Death Touch as well. One of them is going to jump in front of Sidisi, it looks like, and we'll see exactly how he wants to set things up as far as blocking is concerned. We'll see an exchange of resources here from both players.
Now, where things are really good for Nelson here is that Farika God of Affliction that he invested in all the way back on turn 3. Because if Reid trades off all his resources here, because Reid doesn't have things like Soul of Innistrad or Sidisi Brood Tyrant, the way he gets his card advantage back is through something like Whip of Erebos. But the Farika on Brad's side will really shut that down, which means Reid will be on 1 card per turn, and he'll be behind on the board right now after this attack. It's going to be difficult for Reid to make progress from here.
Bunch of blocks, bunch of trades. Death Touch, of course, very helpful in this situation. But it looks like Nelson does get some damage through here, and he's got a little bit of an advantage right now. We'll see if he can further that along or not. So he does pass the turn back over to Duke. Duke will draw a card. Feels as though right now, even though we don't have a great look at Duke's hand, as though he might be flooding out a little bit.
The danger is, even if he's not flooding out, I mean, we're not certain what not flooding out looks like. I mean, most of his heavy hitters are already accounted for. He only plays 2 copies of Hornet Queen in the main. One's on the table, one's in the graveyard.
This is true. And a Whip's down there as well. You see Brad activate Farika at the end of turn, make another enchantment snake. Satyr Wayfinder the draw. Top card is a copy of Llanowar Waste. Trigger the Courser. That'll come in. He'll gain a life. We'll see the top card now, a copy of Sylvan Caryatid.
So the only way Reid competes with Brad's Hornet Queen is a Hornet Queen of his own, but Reid can't draw one, and thanks to Farika, he can't really whip one. He just doesn't have any left in his deck.
Brad got off to a slow start this game, but he's doing pretty good now. He's turning creature sideways yet again. Looks a lot like last turn. We'll see how Reid elects to block here, as he is definitely under some pressure now. Looks like Caryatid's going to get in front of the zombie token. The Death Touch insect will get in front of Farika, but of course Farika is indestructible, so that's not going to work all that well. An actual Hornet Queen, well, that's going to hang out on defense. So Brad will push through what looks to be 5 points of damage. Could play Satyr Wayfinder this turn. Looks like he's reaching for mana just to do that. So top 4 cards will be turned over. Amongst them is a Sylvan Caryatid, joined Doomwake Giant, Sidisi, and a copy of Llanowar Waste. Waste will stay in the hand as he already put a land at the top of his deck. Courser will be the draw next turn. And that'll be it for Mr. Nelson. Not a bad turn there.
No, not at all. Brad continues to push the advantage. You see that the damage, it seems like, has been done here. Reid is down to 8, and he's playing off the top of his deck, but things aren't getting much better. And right now, the Sultai decks do have some issues that they can just run out of threats. They can run out of cards that matter, and I think Brad has done that to Reid at this point.
Urborg is the land there for Duke, and he's just passing the turn back. Nelson, looks like he may go activating Farika yet again. Perhaps he can get the job done this turn, as he's going to make at least 2 creatures. It looks like 3. He'll remove 2 Sidisi's and a Sylvan Caryatid.
Yeah, 3 more snakes here. That will give Brad a whole slew of attackers.
And again, because there is an Urborg in play, that's why you see him able to tap the blue mana. He can use it for black.
11 attackers now for Brad, only 2 blockers. If Brad turns everything sideways, it will be lethal. Unless Reid has 2 removal spells.
Courser of Krufix is going to come into play here before Nelson elects to play the Temple of Malady. Wants to make sure he gets all of his life, which he will. 2 of it to be exact. So trigger the Scry, take a look. It's a forest. Very quickly going to become the bottom card. Top card now is another copy of Courser of Krufix. And will we be sending everybody into the red zone is the question.
Yep. There you go. Everything on in. It should be too many attackers. Even with 2 blocks. Yeah, Reid cannot stay alive. Game 1, it's Brad Nelson.
Brad Nelson up a game here in the Sultai Reanimator Mirror over Reid Duke as we turn our attention to the sideboard. We will start with Duke and his 1 Bioblight, 2 copies of Disdainful Stroke, 3 Heroes Downfalls, 2 Negates, a Silence the Believers, a Sultai Charm, a Kiora the Crashing Wave, 2 Read the Bones, a Thoughtseize, and a copy of Treasure Cruise. So his thing is a little all over the place here, but there are some really interesting cards. The ones that stand out to me right now, Read the Bones and Treasure Cruise, as far as card drawing is concerned, seems pretty nice.
Well, this kind of matchup post-board morphs into much more of a mid-range kind of card advantage fest, each player trying to grind the other person out. And we actually saw this a couple of weeks ago in Portland in Standard. There was an Obzon mid-range deck that after sideboard just played a 4 Read the Bones, 4 Obzon Charm, and that was incredible in this sort of mid-range mirror. And Reid doesn't have as much as that, but what he can do is he can go to his card advantage that he does have. So his Treasure Cruise, his 2 Read the Bones, those are going to be great here. He wants to fight over Brad's sources of card advantage, so Disdainful Stroke, very good as well.
A lot of nice options here for Reid. Do wonder what he's going to move in and move out as we take a look at Nelson's sideboard, the Reclamation Sage, 3 Bioblights, 3 copies of Disdainful Stroke, 2 Heroes Downfalls of his own, 3 Ashiok Nightmare Weaver, 2 Kiora the Crashing Wave, and a Drown in Sorrow. Ashiok looks pretty good here.
Well, that's going to be the interesting one. We actually saw last time Reid played Sultai Reanimator during the group phase yesterday, he played against Gerard Fabiano in this same mirror match. Now, Reid and Gerard have 13 cards in common in their sideboard, but the difference is, well, unsurprisingly, Gerard's playing some Ashioks, and both games 2 and 3, Gerard won off the back of Ashiok. Now, Brad with 3 Ashiok in his sideboard could really do a number on Reid. I would think he brings in all 3 here. They seem very well positioned for the matchup.
We will see if the Planeswalker will be joining the party. I have a feeling it will be, though. Ashiok, a card that we think of Gerard Fabiano. And I'm sure it's been really good for him this week, and it could be good here for Nelson as well against Duke. Now, both of these players are invitational champions, of course. We saw Reid win a couple years ago when we were in Los Angeles at the back end of the year, and then Brad Nelson, well, he won when we were in Indianapolis. Another champion, Dylan Donegan. He won last week in our Season 4 Invitational. We were in Seattle, Washington, and of course, that'll bring along a token with your likeness on it. And Dylan's is here, and it is beautiful, an elemental token for young pyromancers.
These just keep getting better and better. See here, Dylan, that will remind you of the victory he had. Blue-Red Delver, young pyromancer was essential to him taking down the Invitational, and now there will be a creature token that you can get to kind of symbolize that one. They were show up with entrance to any of our opens next year.
Yeah, Premier IQs as well. We'll also be giving those away with orders, $5 or more on the website, so you can pick up these invitational tokens worldwide in 2015. We'll be starting with Tom Ross to kind of finish up this year, beginning of next year, and then the Donegan tokens will be running wild everywhere. So look forward to getting those. You know, I'd like to be Dylan Donegan for 1 day, 1 week actually, because that means that I've just won $10,000. I just got accepted into college, and now I have my likeness on a card. Life's pretty good.
Except for that eye on fire part. One of them, I could do without that.
I would want that. It would make me stand out a little bit. Intimidating. I would kind of want that. I mean, think about it. I mean, our eyes are just kind of boring right now. It could actually be kind of cool.
How long could it be on fire for? I mean, I would think eventually, like they're right? It would be a cool trick, and it would be really cool for about the 5 minutes you do it, but then that's a lot to spend on one trick.
Okay, if I could turn it on and off at will, it would be fine. If it had to stay on the entire time, not okay.
Okay.
Not okay, that's my deal. Because then, I can go out and I can just, flip a switch and boom, my eye's on fire, and everyone's like, dude, you're awesome. And then I can just turn it off.
Right.
And I'll never have to explain the trick because I don't want to give away my talents. So there you go.
Well, Reid's going to be on the play for game 2. Looks like Brad is on a mulligan here.
You see exactly what's happened. Gerard Fabiano clawed and scratched his way back as only he can to get by BBD, Brian Brunduin. Brian with a fantastic tournament, but Gerard, just an unreal comeback, really. Just when you have your back against the wall like that, down 2 games to 0, a lot of people will just give up. It's just, I'm not going to win 3 games in a row. The chances of that are so unlikely, but not Gerard. He clawed all the way back, got by BBD, and now he waits to see who he's going to play in the finals here. Will it be his good friend Reid Duke, or will it be Brad Nelson, who's currently up a game, as both players do have a copy of Opulent Palace to start things off?
It's Gerard's second finals in as many Sundays, being
Yeah.
a Grand Prix champion last weekend.
It's been a good stretch for him, too. We talked about Donegan and his stretch. Gerard, it's been very, very impressive. As this is a Thoughtseize. We will see Nelson's hand. Reclamation Sage, a Whip of Erebos. He's also got a Temple of Malady, an Opulent Palace, and a Murderous Cut in there. It looks like a Satyr Wayfinder is the last card there. Not a bad hand, but, these games are going to take so long that most hands do seem to be keepable in this matchup.
Well, look how slow of a hand it is that Brad kept on top of that, and I agree. It's 3 tapped lands on the draw. Now, granted, Brad was on a mulligan, so it doesn't have as much flexibility here. But its first real play is as turn 3 Satyr Wayfinder, and that's probably good enough in this matchup. Reclamation Sage could take care of a Courser that Reid could play, Murderous Cut taking care of something else, and Brad with a Whip to go with that Wayfinder. It's a pretty decent hand.
Interested to see exactly what Duke wants to take here. I mean, of course, it depends on the texture of his hand. There are some very specific cards. He's going to go with the Whip, and that's, one could argue the best card in the matchup. So Reid's going to take care of that, play a second land, which is not Opulent Palace, and just pass the turn back.
Yeah, it's pretty telling. Unlike the last matchup where Brian Brunduin had 3 back teenagers and we saw Gerard completely abandon his whip strategy, Whip of Arrows is a great weapon in this matchup. The answers the players have to it is a limited number of Sultai Charms and then the Freaka God of Afflictions they have in the main. But beyond that, an unchecked whip can just dominate these matchups.
Temple of Malady is the top card. Is the card you just played, excuse me. Top card is going to stay on top there for the Scry. So a passing the turn there for Nelson. Could have played Opulent Palace that turn, but elected to Scry. Maybe looking to run into something like a Courser for the next turn. We'll see.
And a lot of this is going to be about the grind. Read the Bones, Courser of Crewfix. These are the cards that the players are going to want to find early on.
See what Reid wants to do on turn number 3. You have to imagine he has a land to play, just trying to figure out which one it's going to be. It'll be a Land of Our Waste, followed up with the Courser of Crewfix. Top card of the deck is a Treasure Cruise. That one's from the board.
Well, speaking of card advantage, this is where Reid wants to be right now. He has a Courser in play on turn 3. He knows right now that Brad can't answer the Courser this turn. Brad had a Murderous Cut, but I guess he could tap out with a fetch land to get rid of the Courser, but that's about it.
That's not something he's going to do now. Here's a Satyr Wayfinder. Turn over the top handful of cards. Yavimaya is going to go to the grip. Other ones will go to the bin. And does he want to use a Murderous Cut on this is the question, because now he's got 4 cards down there. Now you see the Delta. Delta can be number 5. It's also the black mana that he does need.
So he could take care of Courser. Question, I think, would be what does it leave him open to? What are the creatures he needs to save it for? In this matchup, there are some good targets for Murderous Cut, but especially because Reid is the person without Sidisi's, Brad I think can afford to be aggressive with this card. Hornet Queen, you don't really need to cut that one down. Probably the best target for it is Doomwake Giant, but Courser's a close second.
Now there's the Delta. It'll be sacrificed. Nelson's going to go down to 19. I have to imagine a Swamp is coming out of his deck, and there that is.
Yep, looks like he'll cut down the Courser of Crewfix.
Yeah, it is interesting if you're supposed to just take care of that right away, if you're supposed to save a cut for a Doomwake Giant. And if you have multiple cuts, is it okay to just say, well, I'll use one here and then save the next one for a Doomwake Giant? It looks like he wants to use this first one.
Yeah, there aren't that many better targets. So he'll leave the Sidisi in his graveyard in case he does hit a whip. Cuts down the Courser of Crewfix, and we're back to Reid Duke. Board's clean.
Well, Reid's going to untap and draw the Treasure Cruise. We all know that. Let's see what the 4th turn brings here. Perhaps it's another Courser. It is. Top card. Temple of Malady. That's coming into play. Trigger. Gain a life and a scry. Nykthos is the card that Duke is looking at. That one's going to go to the bottom. So now we take a look at the next card. It's a copy of Reid the Bones. So card advantage is something that Reid can generate here between Courser, Cruise, and Reid the Bones. I mean, that's not going to be a problem.
This is great for Reid. This is what he wants to be doing, and you see these cards coming out of the sideboard. Thoughtseize, he had some in the main, but more in the board. And these Reid the Bones and Treasure Cruises we're seeing, these are all out of the sideboard. I think Reid is really prepared for this for the remainder of the games.
And 2 Reid the Bones, 1 Cruise in the board here for Duke. Brad going to play land number 4. This will be a Murderous Cut again to get Courser off the table and serve in for 1 point of damage. So Reid the Bones will be turned face down. But again, that will be Duke's draw. Nelson knows that, as does everybody watching. So Reid the Bones is added to the grip. It's aggressive use of Murderous Cut.
A lot of respect for Courser Crufix coming from Brad Nelson. If he had something like his own Courser in play, these would be a lot stronger because Brad would be accruing card advantage. Right now, he is more or less playing defense. Every time Reid tries to gain extra cards, Brad is shutting it down. But Brad isn't getting extra cards of his own, so things are still staying pretty even.
Reid is going to take the turn off, for lack of a better term, to cast Reid the Bones. So he's going to scry 2. We'll see if he wants to keep him on top, move him around, move him to the bottom. All that action, but given that he's not underneath a lot of pressure here, there's just a Satyr Wayfinder in play. Seems like a pretty decent turn to take the time off to get some cards. Even at the expense of 2 life. And it looks like he's just going to keep those. Play a Nykthos and just pass the turn back over to Nelson. So Nelson will untap those 4 lands and the Wayfinder. Take a draw. Looks like it may have been a copy of Sidisi.
That'll be a pretty good one here. We talk about ways to get card advantage. If Brad does have Sidisi, the free zombies you get off Sidisi are pretty potent here.
In for 1.
One thing you notice the players are not doing is watching each other's life totals. Really does not seem to be relevant. I'm not sure when it becomes relevant, but it's not until late in these games.
That's what it feels like.
It seems all about board presence. And, well, card advantage, to be sure.
And Reid's the one who's generating most of that at this point in the game. Now, of course, that can change. But, you know, for example, this turn he could take another turn off and cast Treasure Cruise. I'm not saying that's the best use of his resources or his turn, but it's an option he does have available. Instead, he's going to play his 3rd Courser of the game. Opulent Palace is going to come off the top. He'll gain a life. Top card is Eidolon Blossoms, which is, you guessed it, more card advantage. I like his configuration after board for sure.
Every card here, outside of Thoughtseize, which is also great, has had the potential to draw extra cards for Reid. If Brad doesn't have a threat, and it really looks like he doesn't right now, then there's nothing Reid wants to do more here than just continue to get extra cards. It'll help him be prepared for whatever Brad puts together.
Here's a Reclamation Sage.
And Brad just will not let Reid get a free card off these coursers. The 3rd one that he has killed this game.
Satyr Wayfinder going to come across. Reclamation Sage takes care of the Courser. Eidolon Blossoms is the draw. Reid going to organize some mana. He'll play the Eidolon, trigger, draw a card. 4 mana 2/2 is in play. Is there a follow-up here for Duke? Well, Temple Deceit's not a bad place to start. Take a look at the top card. Top card will stay on top and just pass the turn back over to Nelson.
Reid slowly building up toward the high end of his deck. Things like Hornet Queen, Whip of Erebos.
If I'm Reid in this game, even though, you know, the life total is it's 15 to 19 and Brad's got a little bit of a board presence, I would feel like I'm destroying Brad this game.
Look at their hand size. I'd say I agree.
There's an attack for 2. Brad going to play an Opulent Palace and just pass the turn back.
Now, this isn't to say there isn't a good line for Brad. If you remember in game 1, what Brad was able to do was run Reid out of threats. And if Brad simply answers all Reid's threats, and I mean all of them in his deck, then it doesn't really matter that Reid has drawn extra cards if nothing can stick.
Yeah, I mean, if Reid is just, you know, not drawing anything of consequence, then he's doing perfectly fine. He's going to serve in here with Eidolon Blossoms. Nelson's going to go down to 17. But I would be surprised if that is the case. He's going to tap 4 mana now. It's another copy of Eidolon Blossoms. A couple cards coming here for the Duke.
And this is going to get out of hand if Brad doesn't have a way to answer it. Something like Bile Blight. Or just ways to get rid of these Eidolons. If every enchantment Reid draws him 2 cards, there's no way Brad will keep up.
It won't take long. before the game is over.
And we saw from Gerard Fabiano against the Obs on aggro deck of Brian Braun-Duin, this card was a bit of a liability. When your opponent's playing 4/4s for 3, it just wasn't big enough despite its powerful ability. But this matchup, things are completely different.
Here's Farika now.
If you want to talk about drawing some cards here, those snakes that Farika makes, those are enchantments. And Reid with a full grip here, he can draw cards at will right now. Treasure Cruise in hand, Farika in play with 2 Eidolons. He'll just be at whatever number of cards he wants to be.
Yeah, this feels like a runaway already. Farika is in play now. You check the devotion. It's on. 2 for itself, 2 for Eidolon, 2 for Eidolon, 1 for Sylvan Caryatid. That's 7. There are 2 Eidolons in play. Farika with Nykthos in play. Now you're really getting out of control as far as the amount of green mana you can provide. Maybe someone checking for an Urborg, not one in play right now, but things can just get really out of hand here. If Duke is able to untap, it does get really, really scary. And for Nelson, I think he's stuck with just a land in his hand. I see a Manic Influence over there. There's a copy of Kiora. That's okay, but I'm not sure that keeps up with what Reid is doing. Brad's going to take the time to minus that and draw a card, and he's not going to waste any time. He knows he is beat. Now, again, in this situation, it's just like, look, you could just play it out, but Brad is getting destroyed on the card advantage front. How's he going to keep up with that?
And that's something actually that Brad Nelson as a player, you see do, a lot of other pros don't. I think it comes from his background of being a Magic Online grinder. A lot of times would play simultaneous tournaments, and one of the things that he got very good at doing was identifying which games were in reach and which ones were not. So you'll see a lot of times that he correctly knows the key moment when this game doesn't need to be played anymore. And I think in that situation, what happened is that we talked about how Reid is kind of playing this Constellation style of Reanimator. He got to be the Constellation deck here. He got his Nykthos in play. He got a lot of green mana symbols. He got some Eidolons going. And that kind of late game isn't really something Brad can contest with. Brad's playing a Sultai deck with Sidisi. He's creating, incremental advantage out of the graveyard. He's not doing anything like tapping lands for 7, 8 mana, making 5 creatures, drawing 6. That's way out of his range.
Yeah, the card advantage battle, taking a look at the sideboards and just the composition of the deck, seems to favor Reid. Again, you think about the turns of that game, because you mentioned the life total is not really going to matter in the early stages of the game. You're not going to rush your opponent out of the game in this particular matchup. So taking a turn off to cast Reid the Bones, taking a turn off to cast Eidolon of Blossoms, you saw exactly how the exchanges went. Reid plays a Courser. Brad, okay, I'll Murderous Cut that. Okay, sure. The third Courser actually drew a card. You Murderous Cut that. Well, I'm +1 card. Now I'm going to play an Eidolon, draw a card. If you Reclamation Sage that, I suppose, you're keeping a little bit of parity there, but now it's Eidolon of Blossoms number 2 with 1 already in play. Draw 2 cards. Now there's Farika, and now things are spiraling out of control. Brad played his Kiora, he drew a card, and he said, I can't keep up with this. I'm just going to move on to the next game. And maybe part of the reason that he moved on to the next game very quickly, one reason I can attribute to, as you mentioned, Magic Online, let's just move on to the next game mentality, but 2, maybe he's not happy with how he sideboarded.
Yeah, well, one thing which I think we're learning as we go along with this is because of the devotion part of Reid's strategy, maybe Brad has to reevaluate his role in this matchup. I wouldn't be surprised to see him be more aggressive with his plan here. If, more cards like Sidisi, Ashiok, he's going to have to keep hands that put a lot of pressure on early, because if this goes late, it seems like Reid is a runaway.
Yeah, maybe the first game was an anomaly. I'm not entirely sure, where Reid does have a pretty decent late game going. He has Doomwake Giant. He has Hornet Queen in play. Brad has to play his Hornet Queen. Reid just draws, plays a land, passes the turn back. No enchantment for the kind of mini blowout of sweeping away all of the insect tokens. And then Reid just didn't really do anything. I think the late game is exactly where Reid wants to be. And I think, as you mentioned, the early and the mid game is where Brad wants to be, maybe pushing an advantage with Sidisi, something like that. But the later we go, it seems like the worse things get, because Reid can just see more cards than Brad over the course of a game.
Yeah, so tied at 1-1. Remember, this is a best of 5. So if Brad does want to switch up his strategy, he will have plenty of games to figure it out.
Now, I do like some of the options that Brad has in his sideboard. Disdainful Stroke is good in this matchup for multiple reasons. There's Whips to counter. There are cards like Eidolon of Blossoms and Doomwake Giant, Hornet Queen 2, which Reid has 2 copies of, though it makes you wonder if those are in after sideboard due to the fact that Brad has access to Doomwake Giant. Ashiok is great here for Nelson. That's a difficult card for Duke to beat, and, it's a card that they do have to answer relatively quickly. So I think that there are some nice options here for Brad, but I think he's got to be the player who pushes their advantage and is just trying to tip Reid over and never let him get set up and take turns off to cast Treasure Cruise or to cast Reid the Bones.
Yeah, his cards will function very well when he's ahead. Things like Ashiok, Disdainful Stroke. These are good if he has control of the board, but when the board is even or Brad is behind, Reid is going to draw more cards than Brad, and it's just going to get more and more difficult for him. So with him back on the play, that'll be a boon for him. Certainly will be helpful. But I think when looking at his hands, if he has hands which are full of murderous cuts or like these reactive hands, I'm not sure he can keep all of them.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I think, just watching how that second game played out, the first game went to Nelson, and it was pretty straightforward. Plays a Farika, kind of gets that going. Had a Murderous Card for the Doomway Giant. The Doomway Giant had a small window to take care of the insect tokens. Duke didn't have an enchantment. Things went Nelson's way. But if that's how the sideboard of games are going to go, Nelson is in a whole lot of trouble here.
Yeah, Brad won game one by playing the late game, but I'm not sure he can do that for the remaining ones.
Yeah, just Reid has so many great options. We haven't even talked about a card like Silence the Believers. The later we go, the better that one gets.
Yeah, absolutely. It can take care of a Doomwake Giant and something like a Sidisi all in one hit.
Yeah. It's kind of scary, just if you're rooting for Brad, if you're Brad there in the chair just thinking, wow, that game was an absolute disaster. Now, Brad didn't draw that great. He drew a couple copies of Murderous Cut, quite a few lands there. Kiora not playing a huge role in that particular game, so maybe his draw shapes up a little bit better this go-around. But, if the games look like the second one did, Reid Duke's going to be moving on to play against his buddy Gerard Fabiano in what is very close to a mirror match, one that Gerard has already won once this weekend. But we're not going to get too far ahead of ourselves. It is only game 3 of 5 after all. Nelson will be on the play. He's going to keep playing Opulent Palace, and we're underway.
Interesting to see what kind of hand each player presents. How much pressure can Brad get down early? Now, that's not to say his deck has to be an aggro deck. I mean, that's just not what he's playing. But as we saw before in the early games, Brad had nothing but a Farika and 4 lands on the first 4 turns. I imagine he'll try to be more aggressive than that.
Reid Duke's going to make the top card his bottom card with Temple of Malady. We're going to head back Nelson's way. It's a copy of Satyr Wayfinder, so we'll turn over a couple of cards here. Forest, with Verbosa, Kiora, and Llanowar Waste among them. He'll go with the Llanowar Waste. Perhaps he needs a little bit of black mana. The rest will go to the graveyard. And pass the turn back over to Reid. Now, keep in mind, Brad does have a copy of Kiora in his hand already. I'm a little curious to see exactly what role the Planeswalker does play in this particular matchup.
Yeah, well, it's another card that if he gets ahead really early, I suppose, can be threatening. Say he has a turn 2 Sylvan Caryatid. He could just make a turn 3 Kiora, start to draw cards, maybe plus it. It's a source of, and nothing else, it's a source of card advantage out of Brad.
Woundsoul Teeth will be sacrificed. Duke going to go forest hunting. So 2 lands in play. We'll see if it's maybe a Caryatid here, or perhaps a Satyr Wayfinder of his own. Either way, it will be 2 mana. It'll be a Caryatid, so Duke does have the mana acceleration here. And we'll be heading back Nelson's way, see what he can put together on his 3rd turn of the game.
Yeah, see, Brad Nelson with some card advantage here does have his own copy of Courser of Kruphix.
He'll play that. Evolving Wilds on top of the deck, pass the turn back. The Waste being able to provide black mana there perhaps could have mattered in case Ashiok was in Nelson's script. He's already got the blue there from Opulent Palace, but not the case. Just a Courser with an Evolving Wilds on top. That'll be Nelson's draw, so he send it back Duke's way. See what Reid can put together on his 3rd turn of the game. Likely going to have access to 4 mana here.
Yeah, he can steal some initiative here. Though, to be fair, with these Sultai decks, if you're not playing Sidisi, ramping to 4 actually isn't all that helpful. So one of the best things that you can do with this ramp is, I was just going to say, is play Courser and then check for a land drop. There's no 4-mana spell that you actually want to play more than Courser of Kruphix.
Nikto's going to come in. Trigger, Courser, gain a life. Top card here is the Thoughtseize. Evolving Wilds will be the draw. Yavimaya Coast will come off the top of the deck. Now there's a copy of Mana Confluence, so Nelson will gain a little bit of life. Now both players have Coursers. Both players gain a little bit of an advantage here. Will Nelson take the opportunity to cast Kiora, or we go with Sidisi? It's going to be Sidisi. So, turn over a couple of cards. There is a creature in Reclamation Sage, so a zombie incoming, and now a Sylvan Caryatid on top of the deck. This is a little bit more aggressive start here for Nelson.
Yeah, I like the incremental value that Brad can get off this Courser of Kruphix. So you're right, he had to decide between Kiora and Sidisi on that turn. And because he knew the top card of his deck, and it was Mana Confluence, something he's probably not too thrilled to draw, he chooses Sidisi. And not only, he gets to have a good card, and he gets to really improve his draw here.
Read the Bones, the top card there for Duke. See if Duke wants to lead off with a Thoughtseize on this particular turn, if he has something better to do. Nelson, again, does have a copy of Cure in his hand, some other stuff going on. There's also a Courser, a Hornet Queen as well. So is it time for the Great Discard spell? It looks like the answer is yes. Evolving Wilds among those cards. I believe there's also a Swamp hiding out as well. See if we can get a better look at Nelson's hand for you guys watching at home. Reid, of course, gets to select a card here, too.
So with Brad, we have Evolving Wilds, Swamp, Forest, Hornet Queen, Courser of Krufix.
So our apologies, a little misstep there on our end. No Kiora in hand, it looks like.
Brad
just milled one over.
A lot of mana right now. Sidisi's been good and will continue to be so. And why make a choice when you don't have to? Reid's going to go ahead and pick both of them with a second thought seize.
So the Queen and the Courser are both going to bite the dust, and Brad is stuck with lands and drawing a copy of Sylvan Caryatid.
Not where he wanted to be.
Sidisi will be the draw next turn, potentially. Brad does have a copy of Evolving Wilds in his hand, so he can't shuffle that away.
A good window here for Brad, though. If you're looking carefully, Reid didn't hit a land last turn. So Brad does have a spot where he can be aggressive. Now, there is some penalty to doing that. Reid does have Reid the Bones next turn, and Brad's on all lands. So he's going to lose control of this game rather quickly. And I think that's why you're going to see a swing of 2, maybe even 3 creatures.
Yeah, I do wonder how aggressive he wants to get here because, of course, Courser can jump in front of the zombie token if it wants to. But as we've said a couple times, the longer you go, I think the worse it gets for Nelson, especially given the situation that his hand has nothing in it.
Yeah, he's considering swinging everything right now.
Yeah.
Not just the safe creatures.
And doesn't mean Reid's hand is blank. Those Sidisi will trigger. Sidisi will turn over Sidisi along with Ashiok and Thoughtseize. So zombie token coming, and the draw next turn is a Murderous Cut.
Great improvement on the draw for Brad. Murderous Cut, something he probably wouldn't mind to have here, especially to take down something like Courser of Krufix.
Caryatid is going to come into play. Evolving Wilds is a land for the turn. Trigger the Courser, gain a life, kick the turn back over to Duke. Duke's going to untap and draw his copy of Reid the Bones. Top card here is a Reid the Bones.
Well, for Reid Duke, he's got a lot of things taken care of, but the number of creatures that Brad's getting in play is starting to become concerning. He'll have time to read the Bones maybe once, but certainly not a second time. You see him, I can't imagine he wants to draw another one. He knows he's going to lose his Courser next turn, and that's got to be a concern for him. Sidisi has made zombies twice, and without the 2/4, Brad can go ahead and swing all the zombies in addition to the 2 creatures he already swung.
Hero's Downfall, Commune with the Gods are the cards drawn there. For Duke, Sylvan Caryatid on top.
No lands, none on top, none drawn. A tough break for Reid.
Yeah.
If he has Murderous Cut, he does have 1 Caryatid and 4 cards in the yard. He could make that play.
Nelson going to draw his Murderous Cut. Top card hits a copy of Llanowar Waste. He'll take that, trigger the Courser, gain a life. And top card now is a Llanowar Waste.
I think Brad may have pulled it off. He may have had a draw that's aggressive enough to capitalize on the fact that Reid has stumbled here.
Yeah, aggressive enough and the stumbling. That's the combination. He's going to get another zombie token here from Sidisi. Duke wants to take a look at the graveyard, see exactly what Brad's got working over there. Top card's Llanowar Waste Shed again here from Sidisi.
I think at this point, Reid is looking at the yard because he wants to have a better image of Brad's board plan. He may be sensing that this game has gotten away from him.
Looks like it's going to be a Murderous Cut now before blockers. On the Courser, perhaps. Yes. That'll bite the dust. Reid's going to have to figure out how he can block here, but he's in a world of trouble right now, especially because he knows he's going to draw Caryatid.
Right, he's going to draw Caryatid, and because he no longer has a Courser, he's not going to get a land even for the next turn.
So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points of damage are going to come across. Nelson, with not much of a hand, but right now, fortunately for him, he doesn't need one. Duke going to draw the Caryatid. We saw that from the Courser. But his mana issues have come back to hurt him in this particular game, and I'm not entirely sure there's a way for him to work himself out of it.
Just like Eidolon of Blossoms took Game 2 for Reid, Brad's own 4-drop Sidisi Brood Tyrant was the reason he got Game 3.
They generate card advantage in different ways. Sidisi making creatures to allow Brad to continue to be aggressive. Eidolon, of course, drawing cards for Reid. Brad going to sacrifice Evolving Wilds here. Perhaps Reid just playing this game out to pick up a little bit of information due to Courser providing it. Brad going to search up a basic land. There's a swamp, so we'll see the top card of Brad's deck here in just a moment. But it looks like he is one attack step away from going up 2-1 here in this matchup.
And just as Gerard had to climb out of a hole, it seems like Reid might have to as well. Not as big of one. Reid's down 2-1, not 2-0. But for both of the New York, New Jersey players with their Sultai Reanimator decks, it's going to be a comeback.
Sultai Charm. That was the draw for Brad this turn. Murderous Cuts on top, so back-to-back removal spells. Everybody's going to come on into the red zone. Turn over a couple of cards. Ashiok among them. Reclamation Sage on top. Reid, yeah, he was there just for the information. Gives it a thumbs up, and we're heading on to game number 4. Brad Nelson up 2-1 here in this matchup. Kind of a weird game there where, Reid's start was obviously really good. He was banking on Courser to find some lands and just didn't happen.
No, you're absolutely right. He had the card advantage. He had the Reid the Bones, but a couple costly land drop misses, and that was all Sidisi needed to get a lot of power in for Brad Nelson. And if he can get that aggressive start, Brad can get one more game, and that's all he'll need to move on to the finals.
Yeah, for Brad, he gets to try to take one out of the next two. For Reid, well, he can't lose again. We know that much. You see the options there for the sideboards for role players, so they're going to change some things around, given that Reid's going to be on the play this game. Brad's going to be in the draw, so while they do shift some stuff in and out, we will talk about regionals. We've got 14 of them coming up here on February 8th. Our winter regionals should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, these take place on the Pro Tour weekend. So for those of you who aren't qualified for the Pro Tour and still want to play Magic that weekend, go ahead and find a regional. 14 of them around the country. Finding the one nearest you, list of them here and at starcitygames.com/regionals. And for those of you who attend the first 200, we have a prize in store for you, and that is a very nice play mat.
Yeah, free exclusive. To the first 200 players. We've got all of our squirrels on one play mat now, a squirrel menagerie, if you will. Again, free and exclusive to the first 200 players that do attend regionals. That's February 7th. You can find out more information about this tournament at starcitygames.com/regionals. Plant your flag over the winter on February 7th over Pro Tour weekend. I'll be playing in mine. It'll be in the Oregon area. It's a little far from Seattle, but I battle all my weekends off. I am who I am.
I'll be in Minneapolis. We can't think what these squirrels play Deathblade. Is that what this playmat teaches us?
Yeah, they do. I mean, Dark Confidant, Force of Will, Stoneforge Mystic, and Brainstorm. They play a deck that I would never play.
It's got a lot of good cards in it.
That's why I wouldn't play it. It's too easy to win with. So I like a challenge.
I like to play with the bad cards.
Yeah, Death and Taxes when I was in Portland. I like a real challenge. Or goblins.
2 1s for 2. How many of them can you fit in the deck?
A lot. That we know. Or 3 1s. 3 1s for 2 or 3.
Sure, at any cost.
That's right. Some of them fly, some of them don't.
Going into game 4 here, Reid will be back on the play. And so far, the play draw has taken the first 3 games.
This is true. It's important.
Yeah, to be fair, this is a matchup where I wouldn't have expected it to matter too much. So much of this seems to hinge on, do you hit your land drops? How much card advantage can you generate? Tempo doesn't seem to be that key. Say, for example, that game, Reid Duke with the Sylvan Caryatid stole a point of tempo off Brad, but it's not like the deck can even use that to its advantage. Their 3 drops are better than their 4s.
Yeah. The games are going to go, kind of long no matter what. But again, if you are Nelson, you're trying to shorten the game. You want to win it when you're in the mid game. You don't want to go to the late game where Reid starts generating a cascading advantage with Eidolons and Doomwake Giants and Varika and Hornet Queen and everything else that we saw in game number 2, as he's going to very quickly take a mulligan here. It looks like Nelson's going to keep his hand. The tough stuff are the Reid the Bones and the Treasure Cruise, and if he gets those online, or heaven forbid, silence the Believers, then things get really tough for Brad to win.
If we get to a point where Reid's counting his mana for Nykthos under any condition, then Brad has almost certainly lost the game.
Yeah, I think that's true. I really do.
Got to keep the board cleaner than that. But Reid's on 6. Brad had a mulligan in game 2. Meant he had to keep a reactive hand, which was not the role he wanted here. We'll see if Reid can do better on a multi-6.
And again, mulligans, mulligan's a mulligan. You're not thrilled about it, but wise man once said, mulliganing is not a punishment, it's a choice. So Reid's hand may have been okay there, and he may have just chosen to mulligan, not finding what he was looking for. We'll see if this 6 is a choice or a punishment. It looks like he's going to keep it. See how happy he is as he plays a Temple of Deceit.
Fair amount of contemplation on that mulligan means he's probably looking for something.
He's going to keep it on top, pass the turn back. Nelson couldn't wait to draw his card. He'll start off with the Temple of Malady. Top card becomes the bottom card. We're heading back Duke's way.
And trading temples on the early turn. The first order of business for Reid is going to be to see if he can play the game, if he can assemble enough lands plus spells to compete.
Thoughtseize here. We'll see a Thoughtseize on Nelson's side, along with a Soul of Innistrad, a Doomway Giant, a Satyr Wayfinder, a couple of lands there in Temple of Malady, Llanowar Waste, and Polluted Delta. So no Courser there for Brad, but everything else does look pretty good. You know, Wayfinder's an early play. Thoughtseize lets you get a look at the grip. If he does go a little bit later, he does have Soul of Innistrad and Doomway Giant. So not a bad hand, a hand I think you're going to keep almost always.
I really like this hand from Brad. It's the chance that this hand stumbles is very low. He has all 3 colors of mana, so that part is great. He has a turn 2 play. He can make his way up to 4 lands. He had a Thoughtseize, and he has a late game card or some source of card advantage. I think this is what he wants.
It doesn't have a Thoughtseize anymore. That's what Duke elected to take. Also could have played Satyr Wayfinder this turn, but elected not to. Gonna play Temple Malady instead. Top card becomes the bottom, and we head back Duke's way. Duke will draw a card. Third turn is a Forest. Follow it up with a Courser of Krufix. Not a bad start. Still can carry it to the top card.
So why Brad plays the Temple here, actually, what I believe is his turn 3 play is going to be Satyr Wayfinder if he doesn't find anything else. But on the off chance that he manages with his Temple to find a Reclamation Sage or a Courser of Krufix, then he'll have a much better turn 3. So I think he's scrying there to see if he can set one of those up.
Well, he put the top card to the bottom. And you can see it was an Opulent Palace, so he didn't want to draw that. However, as he does fish out a land with Polluted Delta, it looked like his draw for the turn was a copy of Reclamation Sage. And that'll slow down Courser of Krufix. Now, Reclamation Sage does have a ton of targets in this matchup. And it's hard to say if Courser's the best one, but it is one, and he's going to take the opportunity to kill it.
Yeah, well, what I really like it, that Temple in a roundabout way set up the Reclamation Sage draw, and what that means is he's punishing Reid's mulligan. Brad was up 2 cards thanks to being on the draw and Reid mulliganing, and that Courser was an opportunity for Reid to come back, to economize and gain some extra cards. So Brad's just going to try to, keep his foot down and really not let Reid get off cards like Reid the Bones, if at all possible.
Sylvan Caryatid going to come down there for Duke.
If all of Reid's cards just count for 1, Brad will be +2 most of the game.
Satyr Wayfinder turning over a couple. Kior and Reclamation Sage among them. Murderous Cut's the 3rd card. Yavimaya Coast is the 4th. That's now in Nelson's hand. See what the land's going to be for the turn. He's got a couple of options over there.
That 2nd Reclamation Sage in his graveyard, those are the 2 copies in Brad's deck. 1 in the main, 1 in the sideboard. He has boarded in the 2nd copy.
And unsurprisingly, given the matchup, so many targets in Whip of Erebos, Courser, Doomway Giant, Ion of Blossoms. So Brad deciding exactly what he does want to do here on this turn. Again, he does have an Opulent Palace. You have Mycos that he did reveal, so he's got some options as far as land to play. Looks like a quick stop in play. If there is a judge's ruling to be announced, we will let you guys know at home. Not too sure at this moment what the hiccup may be.
Yeah, in this situation, though, both players, it's been a lot of value plays on each side. Brad getting some free mill, getting to blow up the Courser of Krufix and get a 2-1. Neither of those particularly effective right now, as the 0-3 is keeping both of them offhand.
Duke going to play an Island of Blossoms. The question was if Reid did scry to the top or the bottom. That was the only question there with the Temple of Malady. Looked like Brad may have forgotten, so no big deal there. Eidolon going to trigger, draw a card, of course.
Eidolon, a great
Thoughtseize.
card for Reid.
Yeah, it really, really is. Thoughtseize is pretty good, too. See Doomway Giant, Soul of Innistrad, a couple of lands over there. Opulent Palace, Llanowar Waste, and a Forest. Brad waiting patiently as Reid will take a look at the graveyard.
So here's the thing. Reid has an Eidolon of Blossoms down, and if you weren't with us for Game 2, that was the way Reid managed to win the game. He got 2 of these in play and very quickly ended it. Brad does not yet have an answer to Eidolon, and Reid knows it. So he gets to draw a card here, and if he has another enchantment, especially if it's something like an Eidolon, it won't matter that Reid started out on 6.
Doomway Giant bites the dust. Thoughtseize here off the top for Nelson. Hero's Downfall. See you later.
No cards in the hand for Reid.
Mm-hmm.
So his mulligan still catching up to him, but what he has going on right now is he has an Eidolon, and it has not died yet.
The Duke needs an enchantment.
He does. If he doesn't find one soon enough, there's a worry. Now that Hero's Downfall is gone, Brad can play the Soul of Innistrad and start bringing back all these creatures.
The Duke has found an enchantment. Sylvan Curated, it's the
Yeah.
draw.
However, what a draw it is. He draws a card off the Eidolon and then gets a free land off the top, and his next card's another enchantment. This is a great series of plays for Reid.
Pretty good start. He needed something big there. Corsair was able to trigger the Eidolon. Eidolon was able to draw a card. Corsair then put a land into play. Now Eidolon's getting into the red zone. Here's a Sylvan Curiated.
Pretty good start is an understatement. This is fantastic. If on Reid's next turn, this Doomwake Giant will sweep up the rest of Brad's board, draw a card. Look at how many things Reid suddenly has on the board compared to Brad.
Well, here's the big Soul of Innistrad. That's going to come down. That'll be Nelson's turn. He'll pass the turn back. Now, again, Doomwake Giant's the draw. So that's step one. There's a land on top. So the land's going to come into play for Corsair. That's Opulent Palace. Trigger, draw, card. Okay, then. Now there's a Hero's Downfall.
And Reid with 8 mana can not only play Doomwake Giant, but can play Doomwake, draw that Hero's Downfall, and Hero's Downfall the Soul of Innistrad all in one turn.
That's a pretty good turn. Doomwake Giant's going to come in, trigger Constellation twice. Once on Doomwake itself, once on Eidolon. Now here's Hero's Downfall, get your Soul, get in for 4 points of damage. And I remember that Brad was winning this game.
It wasn't that long ago. We said, boy, if Brad can't kill this Eidolon, it really can come back to punish him. And I didn't mean it like this.
Well, now Brad's got catching up to do. We'll take a look at the graveyard because there is a Soul of Innistrad down there, so he can't activate that and bring back 3 creatures. And the creatures he can bring back, well, they're not bad. He's got 2 Reclamation Sages down there, so he's got some pretty nice options, but all of a sudden he's under the gun.
Yeah, so Brad he still has a good amount of plays here, but his life total is going to be low. He's going to take 8 next turn. He'll go to 5. Things were looking good, and now, yeah, his options are limited.
I mean, he could play Corsair this turn if he wants to, but I think his plan here is to say, all right, I'm going to activate Soul of Innistrad, I'm going to pick up some creatures and pass the turn back. So that's all he can do right now is pass the turn back. Duke can draw Temple of Melody, Hero's Downfall on top of the deck. He's keeping up pretty well here. See if he wants to play the Temple this turn. He's going to start by attacking for 8. Nelson's going to go down to 5. And if he does play the Temple, how does he want to use it? Because Hero's Downfall is a pretty nice draw. And, you know, by playing the Temple here and just saying, I'll keep my Hero's Downfall on top, you're really not doing very much with your Temple at all.
Temple's a great resource. Imagine Reid can hang on to it. There is advantages to having mana in play if you were to have an enchantment on top, because then it would draw a card, and you might want to play the card you drew.
He's just going to hold on to the Temple, though. Nelson's going to activate the Soul. Now it's time to pick up a couple of cards. Reclamation Sage is 1, Doomwake is 2, Sage is 3. 3 very, very good cards in this situation.
Yeah. If Brad thought he had the time last turn to play Corsair, I think he would have. However, that luxury seems all but gone. What Brad can do here is he can Sage away the Eidolon and the Doomwake Giant. And yeah, he'll go to 3, things will be bad, but he will have taken care of most of Reid's threats.
I don't hate that turn.
Doomwake has to go. I don't know which of the other 2 enchantments he's going to get rid of. My guess would be Eidolon, but it could just as easily be Corsair.
The swings in this game have been fierce. Looked like an easy one for Nelson after that Thoughtseize took a Hero's Downfall. He was so far ahead. But Eidolon of Blossom is a very, very powerful card, as Reid has just demonstrated. He's going to start with Corsair.
All right, so saving one of the Sages, he's going to get some free cards here. Mana Confluence is the one he takes.
He's up to 6. Top card now is a copy of Ashiok. That one's interesting. We'll see if Brad has enough time to use it.
Ashiok, an interesting one. We saw Gerard play against Reid earlier. The Ashiok helped use Reid's Coursers against him. Gerard, between his pluses on Ashiok and Reid's Courser, was able to really deny Reid ever drawing it out. If there was ever a good card, Gerard would just plus the Ashiok.
It's a Reclamation Sage, you have to imagine. Again, Brad's got 2 of them in his hand. It's just how does he want to go about using one?
Well, Doomwake Giant is a lot of damage here. And remember, Brad's going to lose one of his creatures to Hero's Downfall as well. So in order for him to stabilize, I think he needs to get the biggest power. He'll get the biggest power creature off the board.
There's your Reclamation Sage. He's giving us a lot of thought on what to kill.
Yeah, there's another target he's very interested in right now.
I mean, that must be the case because, I mean, to you and I, it does seem a little obvious. You could just get the 4/6 off the table, but he's thinking long and hard about killing something else. And
Yeah.
he's going to.
It's going to be the Courser of Grufix.
Wow. Hero's Downfall is going to get turned face down. That's going to be the draw. Again, Temple of Malady is in Duke's hand. He'll take a draw for the turn, add the Downfall to it. We don't know the top card of the deck, but Nelson taking maybe a creative line, making Duke think about it a little bit. Here comes Doomwake.
Well, just Doomwake swinging. Yep.
There's a block.
Means that he can get rid of that Reclamation Sage before Doomwake just takes care of it for him.
Yeah.
Reid has a Downfall in hand. Not sure whether he'll use it now. Brad getting the free card doesn't seem too backbreaking for him.
We can't forget about the Temple of Malady, too. Temple of Malady is going to come into play now. Take a look at the top card. See if it stays on top. Nope, it's going to become the bottom one. So mystery draw coming here for Duke. Just pass the turn back. Nelson going to untap. Ashiok will be the draw for him. You see his Courser in play. Though Duke may stop him in the draw step, we'll see. Satyr Wayfinder on top now. Is he willing to let Nelson keep going with his Courser, maybe gain a little bit more life? He's picked up the information on what the top card is. Oftentimes you see players stop the other person in the draw step when they have a removal spell for Courser. But perhaps he's saving the Downfall for something better.
Until Brad gets rid of the Doomwake Giant, Reid has him covered. Now, Reid knows that Brad has Reclamation Sage in his hand, so how he plays it, he can play it a lot of different ways.
He knows about the Doomwake Giant, too, that Nelson does have. Pick that up with Soul of Innistrad.
Looks like Brad's going to start on Doomwake Giant. If he has a second enchantment, he can actually just get the Eidolon of Blossoms.
And again, maybe not. Untaps the 5 lands, so it's a tough situation. Up 2 games to 1. Back kind of against the wall in this game. Things have shifted in a big way. Looked like he had a big lead, and then Reid came all the way back. Here is Doomwake Giant trigger.
Yeah, but it looks like Brad may be turning things around again here. May have stabilized. Right now, Reid's creatures shrink once. If Brad goes for another enchantment, Reid can save his guys with Hero's Downfall.
Takes 1 for Mana Confluence. Courser.
Here's a second one.
Yep.
And Reid may downfall the Doomwake before this hits the board. If it hits the board, Reid will just lose his Eidolon of Blossoms right here.
I mean, Brad is clearly forcing his hand here, right? I mean, he's basically saying, look, you have to Hero's Downfall my Doomwake Giant, or you're going to lose your Eidolon of Blossoms.
And I think that's what Reid was saving the Downfall for. If he was going to let all that happen, you probably would have seen him last turn just downfall the Courser of Grufix.
Brad going to play a land here.
Excellent sequencing here by Brad to do all of this before making his land drop means he gets to gain 2 when he finally does go for Llanowar Wastes.
Yeah, it looks like he didn't take a damage from the Mana Confluence because there's an Orborg in play on Reid's side, so I want to make sure that we do have that right for you guys. That's an enchantment. That's a Courser of Grufix. Oh, no.
Oh, wow. And remember, we've noticed this with these Eidolon of Blossoms from Reid, they can get out of control real quickly. And you're going to see that.
Wow, what a huge draw there from Reid.
This is going to be a lot of cards. All right, well, that was 1 draw off Courser. Now it's going to be Eidolon. That'll draw 2 cards, 2 Eidolons. One of those cards is going to be a Courser. Reid can draw 2 more.
Don't forget, Doomwake's triggering throughout this, too. Satyr Wayfinder and a Courser of Grufix.
Yeah, this is going to be the 3rd enchantment for Reid.
Yeah, if he plays the Courser right now.
Correct. So, wow, this is the thing that Brad cannot fight with. Is when Reid's deck starts doing this. Eidolon of Blossoms is so scary in this matchup.
Oh boy, now there's freaking Eidolon on top. This looks like game 2 all over again now.
And Matt, think about what Reid started this turn with. It was just a very innocent Eidolon of Blossoms on a lot of untapped lands, and Reid just out of control here.
Yeah, you know, he had Eidolon, he had Doomwake Giant, 2 Caryatids, and now all of a sudden his board is just blown up.
3 cards in hand, 3 creatures added to the board, a Farika added to his hand. Let's not even begin to go for how good that's going to be.
Yeah, Farika with Doomwake Giant, Eidolon of Blossoms is just out of control, let alone 2 Eidolon of Blossoms out there. Coursers, of course, giving away information on when lands are coming or when real spells are coming. For a game that was back and forth, it looked like Nelson had it again when he thought seized away Duke's last card, which was a Hero's Downfall, and you said, well, Reid better draw an enchantment. Oh, he did. And things spiraled back out of control. And now here we are. Brad's going to gain 2. He'll go up to 4. Top card's a Swamp.
And he's still got a chance. We'll see where he goes with this. It's a copy of Ashiok Nightmare Weaver. That means that Reid is not going to draw that Eidolon.
Small victories.
Reid will only draw, probably 8 cards next turn instead of 12.
Yeah, I mean, his draw step is going to be a forest. So
Yeah.
I suppose a frowny face there, but Ashiok does take up to 5.
Reid with the ability to play the Farika and start making enchantment snakes. This is a ton of cards at Reid's disposal.
Satyr Wayfinder going to turn over a couple of cards. Swamp will be the land that's added to Nelson's hand. Top card is a forest. Reid wants to take a look at what's in the graveyard. Brad's going to play his Reclamation Sage. Of course, Reid did know about that because it did come back from Soul of Innistrad. That's going to take care of Doomwake Giant. Brad's trying to stay in this thing.
Well, if he hadn't taken the care of the Doomwake Giant, Reid actually could have just played Farika and started exiling creatures from the graveyard and used that to just wipe Brad's board.
Opulent Palace on top. If he wants to put that in play via Courser, he can. But Reid's going to give this turn some thought because he's got a Farika with a whole lot of mana to manage.
He has as many cards as he wants. The question is, what does Reid want to do with all this wealth?
What a huge shift in this game. This one went back and forth for both players. Now here's Satyr Wayfinder. Take a look. Opulent Palace and a Gate. Farika and a Reclamation Sage. Palace will go to the grip. Doomway Giant sitting on top. Oh, we're going to have a whole bunch of fun now.
Now, one thing I want to point out, and this is an interesting thing, we saw Gerard possibly do this last round as well. Reid's been through a good part of his deck, and we have yet to see a copy of Whip of Arrows, which makes me wonder just how many of them actually are in here. If the matchup is all about card advantage, one thing you can say about Whip is that it's a lot of work to get card advantage, especially when your opponent plays Sultai Charm. Maybe it's not here.
No, as great as this match is, I don't know if you guys at home are following Gerard Fabiano on Twitter, but Gerard is rooting on Reid, of course, because they are very good friends, as Reid has just tied things up here. So we're heading to game number 5, but 18 minutes ago, it's come on, Reid Duke, I hope that you win. Oh, God, 11 minutes ago, yes, come on, Reid, more top decks, come on. And now he says 10 minutes ago, looks like we're going to game 5, and then 9 minutes ago, actually maybe not super close. We haven't seen this updated tweet after Reid went absolutely bonkers by top deck and Corsair Crew fix, but I have a feeling Gerard is pretty happy. 7 minutes ago, we need a Treasure Cruise or Reid the Bones. We need a little bit better than that, and Reid found it. It's game 5 here between these two great players in just a moment.
Well, this is our second semifinal to go to the full 5. Gerard Fabiano completing the comeback with Sultai Reanimator in the first semifinal where he defeated Brian Brunduin. Reid Duke going for a comeback victory over Brad Nelson. Can the two teammates here close out the finals? Reid is 1 game away, or will it be Brad Nelson and Gerard Fabiano, the two dominant players of the tournament, meeting in the finals?
That was a heck of a game. That was just, man, back and forth all over the place for those players.
I mean, it looked for a long time like it was not going to go Reid Duke's way. And he found where he saw a glimmer of hope was his last card was an Eidolon of Blossoms, and Brad wasn't able to kill it right away. And if you want to talk about how this matchup goes, I think you have to look at that game. If Reid gets an uncontested Eidolon of Blossoms, there's just no telling how much damage that can actually do.
Game 5 underway here in just a moment. For all of you watching at home, we do appreciate you having us. It is Cedric Phillips, Matthias Hunt, of course, joined by Patrick Sullivan, Andrew Shrout, Nick Miller, and the rest of the SCG Live crew. We are here from the Star City Game Center in Roanoke, Virginia, at SCG Live. Hashtag SCGPC for your tweets, or chat on twitch.tv/SCG Live. The chat, the feature match area, it's back.
Yes, this has been something that has been off for a long time, but we have brought chat back to SCG Live. So join the conversation on twitch.tv in the feature match area. Anyone can do slow mode chat during the course of our event. We also have a subscriber-only mode where you can subscribe to us, getting custom emoticons and badges, being able to chat during subscriber mode, and being able to send as many messages as you want. You can find us twitch.tv/SCG Live.
Some sweet emoticons are available too. Just a little sample of them. Myself, Patrick, Matthias, our Jetpack Penguin, and our Slow Play Turtle. There are others available too. As Matthias did mention, $4.99 a month, twitch.tv/SCG Live for more information about that and all upcoming events and how to follow us on social media as well. We're glad to have the chat back, but please, we do ask, be responsible out there. Be friendly. Enjoy Magic with everyone who enjoys it, just like you do. We are enjoying this match. Game number 5 going to be underway here between Duke and Nelson in just a moment. Two unbelievably good Magic players doing battle. Only fitting that we'll play a 5th game between them, and the winner will play against Grand Prix Baltimore champion, multiple-time Open Series champion, Gerard Fabiano.
Yeah. So Gerard waiting in the finals. He had that comeback victory over Brian Braun-Duin, winning it in 5. The full 5 games here for Brad Nelson and Reid Duke.
And unsurprisingly, this match has just been back and forth and a lot of fun to watch. I mean, I still think the matchup does favor Reid, especially after sideboard. You know, I just think that, you know, he's just got a great setup with Read the Bones and Treasure Cruise, and against Silence Believers, even though it hasn't played a role in things just yet. Disdainful Stroke seems like a pretty good one. You've seen that he's got Hero's Downfall and Negate in some numbers in his deck after sideboard, where Brad doesn't have as many great tools, but Brad hasn't really had a game with Ashiok just yet, and that one can play a big role as well. So it's tough to say. I think that Reid is a slight favor. We'll see if, because Brad's going to be on the play, if that favors him here or not. I don't think that play draw plays a huge role in the matchup, but could be wrong. We'll see.
Well, how I would look at it is that the biggest difference between the two decks is what they've chosen to do at 4 mana. We see Reid with the playset of Eidolon of Blossoms and Brad with a playset of Sidisi's. Now, both of these cards have 1 games. Reid, games 2 and 4, both victories can really be attributed to Eidolon. While at the same time, Brad was actually able to close out game 3 with Sidisi. But where I like it in Reid's situation is that if both players have their 4-drops at the same time, if Brad gets his Sidisi while Reid gets his Eidolon of Blossoms, and neither of them get removed, then I think the trump goes to Reid. If they both get to do their game plans, Reid is just stronger. So while Brad has to answer Reid's game plan, Reid can either answer Brad's game plan or simply play his own.
It's time for game number 5. Nelson will be on the play, so he's got a copy of Murderous Cut in his hand. Among other options, Sidisi as well. There's a Temple of Mystery there too. He will start with a Temple of Mystery top card. Where's it headed, Brad? That's the question. It's going to stay on top.
Into Sidisi. This is a good thing for Brad on the play. These are the kind of cards they want to be seeing in the matchup.
Opulent Palace and a passing of the turn there for Duke. Brad will draw. Farika, powerful one here.
The decision for Brad is his remaining 2 lands are Polluted Delta and Urborg, which means he does not necessarily have the ability to play his copy of Courser of Kruphix right away. What he did see on top of the Scry was a Farika, and that's a card that's done a lot of work for him. So the question is, did he want to ship and look for that second green source, or just take the Farika and accept his lumps that he may not have a turn 3 play? Farika, too good to pass up, and Brad will be okay playing that on turn 3, even if it's not the Courser he may want.
Thoughtseize time. Take a look at the grip. Lay it out. Polluted Delta, along with a Sidisi, a Murderous Cut, a Courser, Farika, and then the Reclamation Sage. So pretty good hand here for Brad. Doesn't need a little bit of lands, doesn't need that second source of green mana, as you did mention, but at the very least, he will have a turn 3 play in Farika, so it's not the end of the world. Also, because Urborg is out there, he doesn't even have to sacrifice the Polluted Delta, so it's not all bad here for Nelson. The question is what Duke wants to take. There are a lot of really nice options here.
Well, does Reid he has to weigh the odds that Brad draws a green source next turn, versus the necessity to get rid of something like Farika. It's just going to go with Farika here. And that makes sense. When that card was on the table, it was very troublesome for Reid.
It's really good for both players in this matchup. It really, really is. Reid's going to put the top card to the bottom. Brad's going to draw a card as a green mana.
Basic Forest. Great draw for Brad.
Murderous Cut on top. It's a big draw. Big draw.
Absolutely. Next turn, this means he guaranteed has the Sidisi along with Courser of Kruphix. This is where he wanted to be on the play with a 3-drop into 4-drop and a removal spell to back it up. He has a good engine of his own, and he has the cards to take care of Reid's engine. So Brad is set. The question is Reid also set? If Reid's hand is of similar power, going back to what I said earlier, then things are still probably advantage Reid.
Duke is deep in the tank on what to do on his 3rd turn of the game. Was hoping to maybe fade that green source for Courser. You know, Courser isn't in your face, the advantage that provides, but it's slow and steady. And that's what kind of wins the race in this matchup. Brad wants to get a couple of cards from that. We know he's going to draw a Murderous Cut for the turn. We'll see what's going to come next. And Duke does not have a 3rd land.
Oh,
Unbelievable.
Wow. And that could be lights out for Reid. Keeping a 2-lander with a Thoughtseize and a Temple, certainly decent, but there is the risk if you don't hit the land that you might be slowed down. The question is, how hard will your opponent punish you for it? And here, I think the answer is pretty hard. Brad has Sidisi. Could be a lot of power.
But he is not casting Sidisi. He's just playing a polluted delta and passing the turn back. Refuses to play it in this situation. I am a little surprised, I will say that.
Yeah, he does have the option to play something like Murderous Cut. But I'm intrigued as well, because what this means is that if Reid doesn't have a play, I don't think Brad casts a spell for the turn, which means he doesn't capitalize on the missed tempo. But knowing Brad Nelson, maybe just removing that blocker is more important than anything else.
I don't want to waste off the top. This is a Reclamation Sage. That's not something I would want to Murderous Cut. Ugh.
No, and that's not that's not what Brad wanted to see.
I mean, that's a great way to catch up if you're Reid.
I think he was hoping that Reid would play something like Courser and that he could Murderous Cut it. But Reclamation Sage, Brad ends the turn with 4 untapped lands, and now things are back to being even.
There's Sidisi. Take a look at the top couple. Not a creature. And now all Nelson can do, it looks like, is pass the turn back. Things are shifting back and forth between these two players.
Yeah, and it may have been that Brad really wanted the second copy of Courser and didn't want to mill it off the top with Sidisi. And so he opted for the Murderous Cut line, thinking it's about as good unless Reid has Reclamation Sage, which is true. Having a second Courser and insurance policy on the first certainly isn't bad. But as things have played out, it does seem like it bit him a little bit here.
2 mana. Carry added, pass the turn back. Over to Nelson. Nelson gonna draw.
It's not the land drop that Reid wanted there, but it does help.
Better than nothing. 3 mana here. Courser time, perhaps.
Yeah, and here's been the combo, and this is so powerful. The Courser plus Sidisi just gives Brad so much selection off the top of his deck.
And now he sees a Hornet Queen, so he knows the coast is clear to attack with Sidisi. Trigger and make a zombie, so it looks like exactly what he's going to do. So turn over a couple of cards, Hornet Queen among them. There's also Murderous Cut and a Polluted Delta.
Yeah, and because he gets multiple looks and mills thanks to Sidisi, the chance that this Courser hits becomes so much higher.
And Veribos will be the draw next turn, if he wants it to be, because he has a Delta in play, so he
exactly.
He can't sacrifice a Delta if he'd like to.
Whip seems pretty decent here, though. Brad's got a very nice stocked graveyard with a Hornet Queen in it. At the same time, Reid is shut down on mana. It's unlikely that Reid can find the mana to answer the Whip of Erebos and the Sidisi in play and take care of the Courser. Like, this is just too many things that Reid has to do right now. So I think the Whip is great because it provides extra pressure on another axis that Reid has to answer.
Reid's going to take a look at the graveyard. There's a Hornet Queen then in there, among other options. Farika down there too. Murderous Cut, couple of lands.
Yeah, Courser of Krufix, the other targeting option. But, I mean, it's Hornet Queen if you want to think about what Brad's whipping back.
Well, that's certainly the prize. That's for sure. Reid's going to go reaching. See what he's planning on casting this turn. Here's 2 mana. Carry added. It's a land-ish. He's got to pay mana to cast it.
This is a lot like Game 3 for Reid, just getting stuck on lands and Brad using Sidisi to capitalize on it.
All Duke can do is pass a turn back. Whip of Erebos will be the draw. Take a look at the top card. It's another copy of Whip of Erebos. Perhaps we'll see him sacrifice a Delta to kind of move that one away.
Maybe. He can also just attack with Sidisi, and
Sure.
that'll move it. That's that great interaction between Courser of Krufix and Sidisi that he's been using to such great effect in this deck.
Sidisi coming in just a second.
Yeah, got a new sleeve first.
Yep.
And might just be her. No great reason to swing the zombie for Brad. We'll see what he does here.
Let's trigger it. Sultai Charm among those cards. No zombie.
Yeah, so Sidisi right now batting 1 for 3 on hitting creatures. That much has been helping Reid. So even though he's behind, Brad's not, Sidisi's generated 5 power worth of creatures instead of the maximum 9 that she could have done.
Temple of Malady comes in. Trigger. Little Scry, little Life Gain. Cure is on top now. See if Brad maybe wants to take this opportunity to try to resolve Whip of Erebos, but he is playing against a deck that does have a negate. So he's not going to do that just yet. He will just pass the turn back over to Duke.
Well, I like what Brad's doing. Murderous Cut seems more relevant than almost anything else. He doesn't have to present more pressure yet. Reid does have to tap his mana to do something, and when Reid does, that's when Brad plans to make a move.
Deep in the tank goes Reid Duke. How can he work his way out of this situation? Some real mana issues. 3 lands, 2 Caryatids. He does have access to 5 mana, so it's not the end of the world, but he has been slow out of the gate. Here's a copy of Farika and a passing the turn devotion check. 2 from Farika, 1 from the Sage, 1 from each Caryatid. It's at 5.
In the late game, Farika's a great card, but right now it's not what Reid's looking for. He doesn't have a creature in his own graveyard to turn into a Death Touch snake. Yet. He could chump. I think his plan is to chump with Reclamation Sage and then eat it and make a snake. And if Reid can survive to the late game, this Farika will get some value. But it's not really what he wants.
Cure the draw. Farika on top here for Nelson. Not too bad at all.
Yeah, Farika's good enough here that Brad now actually has a decision as to whether or not he wants to attack with Sidisi. I imagine he still makes it just because Sidisi is too strong to not do that with. But losing the Farika is a blow. He only plays the 2 copies. One's already in the graveyard. And in Brad's hand, Reclamation Sage, Kiora, Whip of Erebos, and at least 1 copy of Murderous Cut.
Yeah, some nice options. Just how to figure out how to navigate things. It seemed like last turn he was trying to play around a gate, which is perhaps the reason he didn't play the Whip. Due to Reid having 2 mana available. Makes you wonder if he's going to try to play into it on this turn.
Well, he's got to watch out. Now there's this issue where Reid starts to chump and make snakes every turn. And that actually is problematic for Brad. He's not going to get this Farika off Reid's table.
He's going to lead out with Kiora. It's not a bad negate target. And it will be Disdainful Stroked. Okay. That'll work too. That's another counterspell that Brad has to worry about.
Means that Reid loses 2 blockers on this turn. And also loses the ability to make a snake.
Yeah. But Kiora's a card that comes from a different angle, and given Reid's board, he can't get very aggressive after Kiora, so Brad could work his way towards perhaps making Leviathans for the rest of the game. That's why the Disdainful Stroke happens. Turn over a couple of cards. Zombie token coming in. Courser's on top of the deck. The 3 cards there for Rika, Satyr Wayfinder, and a Sylvan Caryatid. Now here's a Murderous Cut before blockers, it looks like.
That Kiora would have given Brad a ton of options. He could have built toward Krakens. He also could have drawn the Farika off the top of his deck so that he wouldn't have to mill it. A bunch of things that Reid couldn't really let happen. And now Brad's very aggressive with his line.
Yeah, Murderous Cutting before blocks, and now all of a sudden Duke is down to 3. Duke is going to untap and take a draw here. I'm not sure he has a way out of this situation, but if he does, you'd best believe he can find it.
He's at 3. Brad has 4 attackers, all with 2 power, so Reid needs a 3rd blocker at the very least. At the same time, Brad could have removal, and Reid just doesn't have enough mana to make another blocker and counter any removal Brad could have. So there's a lot of things he might lose to here. But that's the recipe for him to stay in the game. He needs to just hold off this damage for now. I think a kill spell at Sidisi, something like Murderous Cut, would be great for Reid here. But he still doesn't hit the 4th land, and he may have just missed it too many times.
He just passed the turn back. Mana available. The ability to make a snake, removing Reclamation Sage if he'd like. Snake, of course, does have Death Touch. We know that Brad's going to draw a copy of Courser here.
Yeah, Brad deciding if he wanted to draw it, he had an uncracked Polluted Delta there.
He will take the Courser top card. Here's a copy of Llanowar Waste. See if maybe he plays the Courser combat or not, so he can get a little bit more life. He'll just go with the land instead. Trigger, gain a life. Top card now. Reclamation Sage. That one's not so bad. If the game does keep going, it's a good one to have available. There's a Whip of Erebos.
Brad is 1 mana away from just being able to start playing whip and using it.
Yeah, but he's got him in a squeeze here, right? Because if Reid has something like a negate or a disdainful stroke, I mean, he's going to want to counter this because this is a problematic card in the matchup. But if he does
can't.
that, yeah, he can't make a blocker. So it's good timing there from Nelson to play the whip.
And that's, I think, one of the things that really you got to watch Brad on. I mean, a lot of not jamming that whip into open mana earlier, even though he was so far ahead. Now finding a window where he has just enough pressure that Reid can no longer counter the whip, even if Reid has the counter spell.
Yeah, patience is key. Here's the attack. Reclamation Stage is going to get turned over as is Sidisi and Hornet Queen, so a zombie token's coming in. We'll see the top card here from Corsair in just a moment. It's another copy of Sidisi, and now it's on Duke to do some blocking.
And it looks like he's blocking before he makes a 1/1. So Reid's doing up to something else.
Yep.
We'll see what it is.
And you have to imagine a removal spell here.
Yeah, originally I was going to say thought he'd remove the Sidisi. However, another Sidisi on top of Brad's deck is pretty unfortunate for him.
Yeah, Silence the Believers will take care of Sidisi. 2 damage is going to come through. Looks like Duke's going to go down to 1. The follow-up is a Corsair. Brad will just pass the turn back. Reid at 1 life. Back couldn't be further against the wall.
5 attackers from Brad.
What's the draw step gotta be? Is there something that he can find? You know, Gerard Fabiano is watching, hoping his friend could work his way out of this.
Yeah. At least 5. Brad even can, next turn he can whip back Hornet Queen, so it's 6 2-power attackers. So many creatures coming in. I don't see how Reid can block all of them. He just doesn't have enough. He might have the answers in hand, but he doesn't have enough mana to play all of them.
Reid going to examine everything. It's been a heck of a tournament here for him. He's going to keep playing on. It's a Corsair. Take a look at the top card. It's a Nykthos. If he's able to, you can put that into play. The question is how much mana can he generate? You take a look at the Devotion. 2 from Corsair, 1 from Farika, 1 from each Kyriadid. That could be 5 green, but you have to tap both Kyriadids to be able to do that. Either way, he's going to put Nykthos into play. Trigger the Corsair, going to go up to 2. Take a look at the top card. It's a copy of Opulent Palace.
And 3 blockers in play. That's just not going to be enough. And I think this should go to Brad Nelson as long as he turns the board sideways. Reid has no colored mana in play, so there's no tricks hiding out here. Everything's on the table.
Duke just passes the turn. Brad going to take a look at his graveyard. Probably for a whip, just to make sure of something. He's going to untap. Remember, he does have a delta among those lands, so he could sacrifice right now if he'd like to. But it looks like he has some interest in drawing Sidisi.
Yeah. And I mean, he's got to think, okay, what is it that Reid's representing? But I don't believe there's anything.
Yeah, that's the thing that you do in this situation is you kind of rack your brain because you're a 1 attack step away from going to the finals and playing for $20,000. You want to make sure that you don't make a mistake in this situation. So he's going to go very slowly through his turn. He's in his upkeep right now. He just wants to make sure, okay, I mean, I don't know how I lose, but I don't want to get too confident here. He'll draw his Sidisi. He'll play his Manic Influence, trigger the Corsairs. We'll see the top card here in just a moment from the Corsairs. You see, this is the first time that Brad actually hasn't even revealed the top card of his deck. There you go. There's Ashiok. You can tell he might be a little bit nervous here.
And here we go. This is going to be it for Brad. Whipping back. Looks to be Hornet Queen.
And that maybe Reclamation Stage. Reclamation Stage is on top of the graveyard. He could use that to kill Corsair if he wants to eliminate a blocker. It'll have haste too. That's pretty good.
Takes care of that. So now it is 6 creatures in. Reid only has 3 blockers. At 2 life, he needs to block 5. That is not close to enough. And a full swing will do it. The comeback is stopped. Brad Nelson 3-2 defeats Reid Duke, and he moves on to the finals where Gerard Fabiano awaits.